Hi everyone, it's Robin with Boutique Jardin and Beautiful Flowers in Vancouver, Canada. In today's video, I have less of a flower arranging demonstration and more of an information session on cut Hydrangea Care. Before I get into the actual physical care and handling of the hydrangeas themselves, I wanted to talk really quickly about availability and pricing. And just a disclaimer, we're located in the Vancouver, Canada area, so the information I'm going to give you today on pricing and availability is accurate for, at the very least, for Western Canada. And it's probably true for most markets, but just to be on the safe side, because it can differ based on where you live, for the most accurate information, you would want to talk to someone that supplies your local flower market. So when it comes to availability of hydrangeas in the Vancouver area in Western Canada, we have two primary sources. There's the local season, and that runs from about May to September, and that is approximate. There's a couple of varieties that are going to fall outside that range, but that captures the bulk of it. So if you go into a flower shop in Western Canada during those months, and I'd probably say most of Canada, those beautiful, really big-headed purple, pink, green, white hydrangeas you see are most likely local ones. The other source of hydrangeas are imported hydrangeas, and the main color that's imported is white. And this gets imported year-round, even when the local season is going on. And in terms of colored imported hydrangeas, they're less common. So just know that if you're looking for colored hydrangeas between the months of September and May, you might have a challenge. Most often, they do come in, it's periodic. It's not as frequent as the whites, which come in every single week. And quite often, they're not a natural color, they're often tinted. So just something to be aware of if you're looking for colored hydrangeas in those months. And just be aware that the availability does differ based on those sorts of factors. When it comes to pricing, there is this really persistent myth that's presented as advice in wedding planning guides. And that is, if you're looking to keep your wedding flower costs under control, or if you're on a budget, to request or work with in-season local flowers. And hydrangeas illustrate so well how outdated this myth is. White hydrangeas that are imported are less expensive than local hydrangeas, even at the height of their season. Quite often, there's exceptions to that depending on grade. But in general, if you're comparing really nice imported white hydrangeas to really nice local, usually the imported ones are less expensive. So the take-home message from that is don't believe that just because something is local that it'll be less costly in price than the imported version. The other thing to know about hydrangeas that is true for certain other flowers like peonies and dahlias in particular is that color affects price. Color doesn't affect price for all flowers, but it does for hydrangeas, at least where we are. So know that like the colored hydrangeas, for example, in the summertime, I find are more expensive for sure than the local, or for sure more than the imported white ones. So the better advice, if you are on a budget and you love hydrangeas, the better advice than looking for in-season local, which may be true for where you're located, but from where we are is not the case anymore. The better advice is to be flexible. So what flexibility means is, let's say you love the idea of purple hydrangeas and white roses. You may end up paying more than someone who has the exact same color scheme, but they have white hydrangeas and purple roses. That little bit of difference in color can have an effect on price. It may not be massive, but it can affect the final quote. Okay, so the care itself, the first thing you do is going to really vary based on the stage that you get your hydrangeas in. So for our business, we sell our hydrangeas already hydrated, so we do this step for you. They get to you in buckets of water. But if you're ordering from an online source, they will get shipped to you in a box. So they come very, very squished in the box to save on space. They will plump up once you get them in water, but that's the first thing you have to do. And you have to do it immediately. Do not let them sit around in a box. That's the first sort of decision you make that's going to give you a really good experience with using hydrangeas. So you take them out of the box and you're going to make a clean cut. If there ever was a time to have proper floral snips or gardening shears, I mean proper like strong cutters, this is it. Hydrangeas have very thick stems. Regular scissors are not going to do this, and the cleaner your cut, the better they're going to drink. So that's a really important tip. So the cut you make is near the bottom. It could be a couple of inches up, and you you cut on an angle. And the reason we cut flowers on an angle is because it increases the surface area of the stem that's exposed to water. They will drink more, in other words. And as you know with hydrangeas, the hydra in hydrangea tells you they love water. So the more they drink, the happier they are. So you make a cut on an angle. Okay, so that's cut. It's on an angle, it's fresh. And the next thing you can do to expose even more surface area to water is make a cut directly up vertically the stem. So the clean cut at the bottom, you're going to cut it at the bottom. This time, instead of across, you're going to cut it up. Okay, so I've made the fresh cut on a diagonal and also up the stem. Immediately, this is the other important bit. Once you made a cut on a flower, immediately you put it into water. This bucket's too short. I would normally have a taller bucket, but you put it into water right away because the end of a flower, when it's cut, starts to seal within seconds. So you want it to be able to drink uninhibited. So right away in water. That's like super important anytime you work with flowers. Okay, so that covers the basic steps that you would do if you're getting them, if you're getting your hydrangeas in a box, how to hydrate them from the very beginning. So what if you get a dud in your box? You get a hydrangea that doesn't hydrate as well as the other ones. The thing to know about hydrangeas is they also drink through their petals. So if you have a hydrangea that's wilting, it's getting a little bit soft, you can revive it. And the way to do it is to have either a bucket of water or any sort of vessel to have water in, and you dunk the hydrangea completely upside down and you leave it for about 20 to 30 minutes. Don't worry too much about precisely timing that amount of time. I haven't found that it really it matters depending on how it varies. The important thing is you leave it in water for at least 20 minutes, and when the time is up, you take it out. You turn it upside down. There's no water in here. I didn't want to make a mess. But it normally would be dripping water. It would be soaked. So I find if you shake it, you tend to break the florets. So I find it's best to let it dry naturally. It takes the better part of a day. So because this end has been sitting up in the air, you have to make a clean cut. I find this is the one thing that people forget the most often. Anytime it's exposed, cut it again. So you cut it again, make that vertical cut up again, and right away you get it into water. It will help hydrate it. There's one other thing I do. You'll notice if you go into flower shops in the summertime, hydrangeas are very rarely kept in a cooler. They tend to do quite fine outside, actually, more so than most other flowers. However, if I have a hydrangea that's really struggling, I do the upside down trick to really give it as much help as possible. I will put it in a cooler. So if you have a fridge that has space, and you can do this, if you're really struggling with any kind of a flower with hydration, hydrate it as well as possible, stick it in the fridge. It really helps to perk it up. So that covers the majority of the physical care. And the rest of it is just sort of the common sense steps that you would follow regardless of what types of flowers that you're using, which is you want to keep them as cool as possible, as long as possible. So with hydrangeas in particular, but really anything, that means keeping them in the coolest part of your house, out of sun. They do not need sun. They're not growing, so they don't need any sunlight. And if you're transporting them anywhere, this is so important. Never leave a bucket of flowers in a hot car while you're running an errand. They always get transported directly from where you're picking them up from to where you're dropping them off. That's a really good place to lose quality during transportation. So if you follow those steps, into water right away, in water as long as possible, and never kept in a hot place, because basically what happens with flowers that are fresh that are wilting, because fresh flowers can wilt, is they're losing water faster than they can take it up, and without that water pressure in their petals and leaves, they will droop. So basically you want to keep the flower drinking water faster than it's losing it. Just keep that in mind. You will have a good experience with hydrangeas then. There's one other thing that I do that you don't have to do. It's a good tip though if you're looking to do this professionally or to get into a hobby, or you're working with a lot of hydrangeas. Now we spray the hydrangeas anyway, so you don't have to do this if you're buying them from us. But if you're not and you're looking to do this further down the road, like more flower arranging, there is a product called Crowning Glory. It also goes by other trade names. There's Finishing Touch. They're all different brand names, but they all do the same thing. It's basically a finishing spray that kind of provides like a sealant almost onto the petals, and it slows down water loss. That's what they do. So as we just talked about, it's losing water faster than you're taking it up that causes a flower to wilt. I spray all of our hydrangeas, and I'm sure that's a contributing factor. particularly for hydrangeas that are going into foam. Just because foam isn't as hydrating as natural water would be, and particularly bridal bouquets I spray as well, and that's what's going to give you that just little bit of extra staying power. So that covers the care and handling of hydrangeas. I just had one last little thing I wanted to go over with you guys. Based on what you know about hydrangeas and how they love hydration and don't like being out of water, you may be wondering, are they a good choice for a bridal bouquet? And my short answer is yes. I use them all the time. The rose and hydrangea combo seasonal bouquet is the most popular one that I make. It's a very popular style across the country. So the short answer is yes, florists use them all the time. The key though to making it a good experience is everything we covered in this video. Start with extremely well hydrated hydrangeas. I can't stress that enough. They must be at peak hydration. On the day of your wedding, you want to follow those same common sense procedures. So you wouldn't take it out of water before you really needed it. And anytime you take it out of water, if you're able to put it back into the water afterwards, let's say after photos, even better. They will last if you follow those sort of basic steps for care. Thanks guys, I think that covers it. So until next time, see you then. Happy planning.